Ever find yourself dreaming about, building up serious wealth, like
Yeah.
enough to set up your family for generations? That dream of security, of comfort, it's pretty powerful, isn't it? But have you ever really stopped to think what happens to all that wealth? Or maybe even what happens to the person who spent their life gathering it all? Okay, let's get into this. Today, we're doing a deep dive into a really old story. And honestly, it challenges pretty much everything we assume about piling up wealth and passing it on.
Yeah, what's fascinating about this one is from the Ānandaseṭṭhivatthu. It's an ancient Buddhist text, right?
Yeah.
And it uses this incredibly vivid personal story, really dramatic, to tackle some huge questions about attachment and, well, what real security actually looks like. It's not just dry philosophy.
No, definitely not. So our mission today is to pull out the most surprising bits from this story. We're looking for a perspective on money, on giving, and a consequence that might just make you rethink what being truly well off means. Get ready, because this story has some twists you won't see coming and a lesson that really hits home. All right, so let's start at the beginning. We're in this ancient city, Savatthi. And there's this guy, Ānandaseṭṭhi. The story says he's not just rich, he's got 800 million, which is
Right.
just an unbelievable amount of money.
Almost impossible to picture, yeah.
But despite all that cash, what was his, defining trait?
Extreme miserliness, just incredibly stingy. The text actually calls him Mahamachar. It really hammers home how tight-fisted he was. He just couldn't let go of anything.
Wow. And he wasn't just hoarding it himself, he was actively teaching this to his son, Mūlasiri.
Exactly. He had this ritual, apparently, every half month, gathers the relatives, and gives his son this, well, financial advice.
Okay, what kind of advice are we talking about?
Things like, don't ever think 400 million is a lot. Basically, never be satisfied.
Right. Keep accumulating.
Yeah, and existing wealth should never be given away. And of course, new wealth must always be generated. Always more.
Did he use any, examples to make his point? To really drive it home?
Oh yeah, very vivid analogies. He'd say wealth disappears like collyrium, like eyeliner, gets used up slowly.
Okay, so it dwindles.
Right. But it should, he argued, pile up, like an anthill does, or like bees make honey. Just constantly adding, 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 never spending. It shows that mindset perfectly.
Okay, so Ānandaseṭṭhi spends his whole life doing this, just hoarding. And then, well, the inevitable happens, he dies. What happens to all that money he so carefully squirreled away? Does his son just inherit it all?
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But no. Amazingly, he died without ever telling his son where he'd hidden his 5 biggest treasures.
Seriously, all that hiding and planning.
Gone. Just like that. The wealth he obsessed over was completely lost to his own son. It just vanished from his reach.
Wow. Okay, that's a twist already. All that effort for nothing. But the consequences didn't stop there, did they? What happened right after he died?
No, it gets wilder. The immediate result of all that attachment, that miserliness, he was reborn.
Reborn.
Yes, but because of his mindset, he was reborn into what the text calls a Kendle family. Now, these were like a community of 1,000 families. They did hired labor, lived sort of on the outskirts in a village just outside Savatthi, his old city.
Right outside his old city. Wow. And his
Yeah.
presence, even before birth, had this massive ripple effect.
Yeah, it's pretty dramatic. From the moment he was conceived in his new mother's womb, that entire group of 1,000 families, they just stopped getting paid.
Not getting paid at all.
No wages. They couldn't even get basic food.
Yeah.
Their entire livelihood just evaporated overnight.
Okay, that would cause panic. How did the Kendla families react?
They were terrified. They figured someone inauspicious, a Kalakin, must have shown up among them, bringing bad luck.
So they started pointing fingers.
Pretty much. They divided their group, trying to isolate the problem, and eventually they singled out the pregnant mother. They expelled her, convinced she was the cause of all their trouble.
Oh, that's awful. So she's cast out, pregnant, totally alone. How did she even survive?
It was incredibly hard. While pregnant, she could barely find enough food to scrape by. And then, after the baby was born, she found out something really harsh. She could only earn any wages if she left the baby behind at home.
What? So she had to choose between feeding herself and being with her child?
An impossible choice, really. It just highlights the terrible situation.
And the child himself,
Hmm.
what was his condition at birth?
It's described as utterly tragic. He was born severely deformed. His hands, his feet, eyes, ears, nose, mouth. The text says they weren't in their proper places. He looked like a dust goblin. Just a shocking, heartbreaking sight.
Oh my goodness. Yet the mother, she didn't abandon him right away, despite how difficult it must have been.
No, remarkably. The text makes a point of saying, the love for a son in the mother's womb is strong. She stuck by him through that initial hardship.
But that couldn't last forever, given the circumstances.
Sadly, no. Eventually, when the boy was old enough to, beg for himself, she reached her limit.
What did she do?
She gave him a begging bowl. And she basically said, I can't bear this suffering anymore, the suffering you bring. And she sent him off to the city, hoping the rich people there would have some compassion.
Just sent him off on his own. Wow. Imagine that poor child.
Yeah. So he starts wandering, begging house to house, just trying to survive.
And then the story takes another turn, doesn't it? Where does he end up?
Incredibly, his path leads him right back to the very house where he used to live, as the wealthy Ānandaseṭṭhi.
No way. Back to his old mansion, does he? Does he recognize it?
He does. The moment he steps inside, he experiences this flash of memory. Memory of past lives, the text calls it. Jatisara.
So he remembers being Ānandaseṭṭhi.
Yes. And he's just filled with this immense distress, this anguish, seeing his former home in his current state. Imagine that feeling.
Unbelievable. But does anyone there recognize him?
Not a chance. He gets past the first few gatehouses, no problem. But then, at the fourth gate, his own grandsons, Mūlasiri's sons, see him.
His grandsons, what do they do?
They see this strange, deformed beggar, and they get scared. They start crying.
And that attracts attention.
Yeah. The household servants come running, see the commotion, and they beat him.
They beat him.
Yeah. And they call him the same thing the Cantilla families did. Call it inauspicious one. Then they drag him out and literally throw him onto a rubbish heap outside.
Thrown onto the trash pile, outside the house he built with his hoarded millions.
The ultimate humiliation. Just discarded.
That's just devastating. And it's right at that moment, isn't it, that the Buddha arrives?
Exactly. The teacher, the Buddha, is on his alms round with Elder Ananda. They come across this scene, the man on the rubbish heap.
And the Buddha knows.
Instantly. Elder Ananda points him out, asks about him, and the teacher reveals everything. Tells him exactly who that man used to be.
And he doesn't just leave it there. He gets involved.
Right. He tells Elder Ananda, go get Mūlasiri. So Ānandaseṭṭhi's son is summoned. And by now, of course, a big crowd is gathered. Everyone wants to see what's happening.
So Mūlasiri arrives. What does the Buddha say to him?
He asks Mūlasiri straight up, do you know this man? Pointing to the deformed beggar.
And Mūlasiri says,
no, of course not. How could he?
And then the big reveal.
And the teacher just states it plainly. He is your father, Ānandaseṭṭhi.
Whoa! Mūlasiri must have just, his mind blown. Probably didn't believe it at first.
Complete disbelief. Understandably. This wreck of a human being, his fabulously wealthy father, impossible.
So how does the teacher prove it? Because that's an extraordinary claim.
He tells the deformed man, the former Ānandaseṭṭhi, tell your son where the 5 great hidden treasures are.
The ones he died without revealing?
Exactly. And the deformed man describes their locations perfectly.
And that convinces Mūlasiri.
That does it. Mūlasiri realizes the truth. It's a profound shock, obviously, and the text says he then took refuge in the teacher. He understood.
Okay, so Mūlasiri gets it, the crowd is watching, and then the teacher delivers the core teaching, right?
Yeah.
In a verse.
Yes, exactly. With everyone understanding the backstory, the teacher gives this powerful verse.
What does it say?
I have sons, I have wealth. Thus the fool is tormented. Indeed, the self is not one's own. How then sons, how then wealth?
Okay, let's unpack that. I have sons, I have wealth, thus the fool is tormented. How is the fool tormented by these things we usually think bring happiness?
Well, the commentary explains it in 6 ways. You're tormented when you lose your sons or wealth. You're tormented by the fear of losing them. And you're tormented by fearing their future loss.
Right, so it's this constant anxiety loop around possession.
Exactly. It's an attachment that inherently brings suffering, whether through actual loss or just the dread of it.
And the verse isn't just about fear of loss, right? There's torment in the effort itself.
Absolutely. Think about the sheer effort involved. Raising sons, the travel, the work, day and night, and then generating wealth farming, trading, all the striving. The teacher points out that this constant effort, driven by that craving, is also a form of torment.
It consumes you.
It really does.
And then the really deep part. Indeed, the self is not one's own. What does that mean? If my self isn't my own?
It points to this fundamental lack of ultimate control. You can't even make your own self consistently happy or free from suffering. Think about the body, right?
Okay.
You could bathe it twice a day, feed it the best food, dress it in fine clothes. But can your physical self actually stop suffering, especially when you're facing death? can it save you?
No, obviously not.
It offers no real support against that ultimate suffering.
Yeah.
It gets sick, it ages, it dies, regardless of what you do to it or for it. It's not truly under your command in that ultimate sense.
So if you can't even rely on your own self, your own body to escape suffering.
Then the questions become really sharp, don't they? When you're dying, when you're in agony, the text uses images like fire, breaking joints. What good are sons then? What good is wealth then?
What suffering did all of Ānandaseṭṭhi's 800 million actually remove for him? On his deathbed or now as this deformed beggar?
The story makes the answer brutally clear. None. Absolutely none. His wealth was useless against his suffering. It couldn't buy him peace, couldn't ease his pain, couldn't change his rebirth.
Wow, that's powerful. And the impact of the Buddha saying all this right there with the living proof in front of everyone. What effect did it have?
A huge effect. The text says 84,000 beings who were listening attained the Dhamma. They grasped the truth of it.
84,000, that's incredible. A massive moment of understanding.
Yeah, it clearly struck a deep chord. The discourse was, as the text says, highly beneficial to the vast multitude present. It changed perspectives right then and there.
So, okay, bring this back. What does the story mean for us now? It's ancient, but feels incredibly relevant.
Doesn't it? It's more than just a cautionary tale about being stingy. It's a really stark reminder that how we relate to wealth, to possessions, to even our loved ones, that attachment can have these huge, unforeseen consequences. Consequences that might even stretch beyond, well, this life.
Yeah, it forces you to ask what security really means. What is a true legacy?
Exactly. Is it just about the material stuff we pile up? Or is genuine well-being found somewhere else? Something less tangible?
Something you can't lose in the same way.
Right. It makes you think, when you're building your life, your career, raising a family, what are you really trying to possess? What's actually yours to control? And what isn't?
And that final point from the verse feels key. If your own self isn't ultimately yours in the sense of being able to command its happiness or stop its suffering,
then what can you truly possess? And maybe more importantly, where should you be looking for real, lasting security? Not in things that can be lost or in a self that's inherently impermanent and subject to suffering.
definitely a lot to think about there. A different way of looking at wealth, security, and maybe even ourselves. That's our deep dive for today. We really hope this ancient story gave you plenty to chew on.